All right, everybody, welcome to our next topic here in lifespan development, looking at changes in adulthood. We're going to break this up into two parts. So our objectives and standards today are to understand how cognitive and social development changes in adults and identify struggles that adults may deal with. Just take a quick moment to look at the standards as well. And our desired result, how does thinking change with adulthood? Excuse me. Investigations revealed that adults had slower reaction times during intelligence tests, which penalized them. However, this is not completely fair since many adults continue to build vocabulary and expand information despite a possible decline in speed in responding to questions or tests or things like that. People in adulthood also comprehend new material and their flexibility improves. This is typically true, especially if a person has a higher education, works in an intellectually demanding field, or has a similar home environment. So a research study involving 700 individuals who were engaged in science or the arts or scholarship. Now, patterns varied from job to job, but most of these people in these areas reached their highest peak of productivity and creativity in their 40s, and this was from Dennis in 1966. Other professions, such as history, literature, or foreign language, they typically reach their highest peak of intelligence in their 60s. So again, also showing that even though we typically believe that adults may lose some memory and thinking skills, typically they do continue to improve them and reach their highest peak in their 40s or in their 60s. Now, the basic character of an individual remains stable over the years. However, researchers realize that personality is flexible and can change as individuals face new tasks. For example, for attitude and personality tests that were given to people in their teenage years and then given again 10 to 15 years later, those tested believed that they had changed, but their results showed that they really had not changed, that their personalities really had not changed at all. For example, confident teenagers remained confident adults, and passive teenagers, or shy or self-conscious teenagers, remained passive as adults, unless there is a sudden dramatic change that can impact them. This could be, maybe their parents getting divorced, moving, suddenly during, or some type of moving structure that could change them, a career change, marriage, things like that. Now, despite also death, I guess, could be put into that category as well. Despite remaining mostly stable, adults do face new problems and situations they must deal with. So this model here was proposed by Daniel Levinson, and this is how adult men develop. And he identified three eras in male development and transition stages that impact them. So the first one we're going to talk about, let me just get a color here. We're going to talk about early adulthood transition. All right, so let me just kind of draw a line around that so we know what we're talking about. And we're going to talk about these three stages first. So these three stages I've also highlighted in blue are part of the early adult transition. So there's three stages in this early adult transition or early adult era. The first is entering the adult world, and this is between the ages of 22 to 28. This is when men are not an adolescent anymore, but they're also not quite fully an adult. And they must resolve the struggle between exploring the options of the adult world and stable life structure. The second stage of this is the age 30 crisis, and this typically occurs between the ages of 28 and 33. And this is a major transitional phase. Tentative commitments are made, such as marriage, life goals, a career, such as a job. But men may feel that unsatisfying or unfulfilled tasks must be addressed before now it's too late to make changes. So maybe they want to travel the world, maybe they want to go skydiving, maybe they want to rise really quickly in their company, before they have to worry about family or kids. And then the third stage in this is settling down, and this typically occurs between the ages of 33 and 40. There's a lot of questions and searching of the age of 30 crisis, which resolve themselves. They've made decisions about marriage, life goals, and the career, which are completed. And men begin to find their niche in society. What a niche is where they belong. As a doctor, do they want to, have a family and have multiple kids? They just want to have one child. So they begin to find how they fit into the world. So the second one is the midlife transition. Um, and the first stage of this is called the midlife transition. This occurs between the ages of 40 and 45. And this is when men begin to typically question questions about the past and the future, like, what have I done with my life? What will I accomplish? And this is where our vocabulary words can be applied of generativity, of wanting to influence future generations or help future generations. This could be their own children. This could be younger people at work. They're trying to guide younger future generations by what they've learned through life. And this can also involve stagnation, where they really don't feel a need to hold on to the past anymore. They kind of are just worried about the future. Second stage in this is middle adulthood, and this is between the ages of 45 and 50. Men begin to find the solutions to their life crises, which they were having earlier, and they reach a period of stability. They begin to understand and tolerate others, but some men may begin to feel cut off by family and friends with no promise in the future. So some of them may feel like they're losing contact with their family, they're losing contact with their friends, and they may begin to feel slightly alone. Now, changes in female development. There have been some studies on midlife development in women. While many men may face a crisis at midlife, or what we call a midlife crisis, which we talked about some of those issues in male development, women during midlife may face less traditional tasks. Women may face greater freedom since many of their kids are grown and out of the house. They may seek careers outside the home. And generally, most studies do not reveal a midlife crisis for women. Most women don't seem to go through a midlife crisis. Now, there are some changes that do apply to women which may impact them. For example, the departure of the last child from home can be a significant event in the lives of some women, and this is known as the empty nest syndrome, which you may have heard of before. But it's typically less traumatic than thought because women may enjoy greater freedom since their children are not in the home anymore, and they're able to possibly reconnect with their spouse and do things one-on-one with their spouse again. Typically, fathers will suffer more negatively when a child leaves the home. So even though we typically think that the female or the mother will suffer more from the child leaving the home, typically the father suffers more from this. So this is something interesting that I have found out recently as well that I've been learning about. Now, there are some ways the empty nest syndrome can affect women. It's true that she will not really be affected by it as long as she has a loving married life that is stable. But typically women who are widowed or have their husbands have passed away, or divorced women struggle with this more because I would assume they probably feel more lonely since there's not someone else there to be with them and sit with them and talk with them. And depression may affect some women through their lives, but typically many of them use their careers to help them build their own self-esteem as well. Okay, so our closure for this lesson. How does thinking change with adulthood? Think about some of the mental capacities that adults go through. Think of some of the big life transitions and life changes that can impact their thinking and their behavior and their psychological makeup and things like that. And that'll help you answer your question. Hope you have a great rest of your day or night, and hope to talk to you soon.